To,
You can ask as many questions you want. I'm gonna tell you that's what that's what.
Okay. Can you start? But I'm from.
oh,
Okay. Please. Sorry, I have to check.
Okay, I'm here from Kawan magazine. It's a teenage magazine, so it's about teenage Disney. Pixar is all about teenager life. Could you tell us about your story, about your career from the start until now? You as a one of important person in Disney Pixar movie. I think you have interesting and inspiring story to share with us.
well, I started as when I was a kid. I was very shy. I
Really?
didn't like talking to people because it was scary, you know. And so oftentimes what I would do is kind of go hide in the corner and draw people. And so that was the way I would express myself because, yeah, human interaction is scary sometimes. So I think that's really what got me into animation was the desire to say something, but not. I was too scared to actually speak with people. So, you know, drawing or puppets, I did a lot of kind of puppet stuff. That was how I got into it. And then as I got into it, I realized, well, really what I'm dealing with here is talking about my life in some way. And I think that's why we go to the movies. When we laugh at something, it's usually because we recognize it. You know, we understand what's going on with these monsters or insects or whatever, you know, that they somehow reflect my life in some way.
From an outsider, I think being an animator is a fun thing to do. What about you? Do you think it's fun or maybe stressful?
I always thought of it as fun. So if you think about like this, it's somehow easier to talk about hand-drawn animation because it's physical. You have to create a second of animation, you have to create at least 12 drawings, sometimes 24, right? So there's a lot of drawings. That just takes a long time. And people, when they hear that, they usually go, how boring. But you know what? When you're sitting there drawing, you're just thinking about the character and what they're feeling and how they move and all this stuff. And so I'm not even counting the drawings as I'm going because you get so lost in what that character is feeling. It's really exciting. It's a great way of expressing yourself. And a lot of times you have a mirror, like a lot of animators, you'll see they're drawing and they look in the mirror and they try to capture like some of the expression in the drawing.
At the press conference, you said that you need 5 years to make Inside Out. How you maintain around 5 years to maintain consistency in the 5 years to make interesting story like this?
When you say 5 fears, do you mean like 5 emotions or?
So you said that you made Inside Out for 5 years.
Oh, 5 years, sorry. Right. Yeah, well,
How come
5 years is, you don't want to take that long. I would love it if I could go quicker. But usually what happens is the first attempt is pretty not so good. And then you sit back and you go, okay, how can I make this better? And you bring in your friends and they all talk about, well, what if you did this? What if you changed that? And then you try it. And so what we do is we draw thousands of drawings that are almost like a comic book version of the story. This is all before we make it. And so we draw it and then we film those. We put our own dialogue and music and sound effects together with those pictures. And then we watch them all together and it's almost like watching the movie. I mean, it's all just very simple black and white drawings, but it gives you a sense of what the movie might be like. And then it's usually not so good. So you change it and you do all that again and you change it again. So by the time the movie comes out, I think we've made probably about 10 different versions of the movie before we arrive at the one that you get to see.
Animated is about creativity. Could you share about maybe 3 or 4 tips how to maintain our creativity? Maybe based on your experience?
Yeah. Well, one thing that happened to me as a kid was this. I grew up before cell phones, and so you're bored sometimes, you know? And that's important, actually, to be bored, because that's when you start to exercise your mind. If as soon as you're bored, you grab your phone, then you're always doing something else, and you never really get to just live in your own head. So I think it's important to find time to just play around and let your mind wander instead of constantly interacting with digital stuff. The other thing I think that's important is to make lists. Don't just settle for the first thing that came to your head. So if you're trying to come up with an idea for, I don't know, a design for, let's say you're making a tablecloth and you want a nice design, you don't just like draw the first thing and there, that's it. You might keep drawing for a while and explore different things, and on drawing number 14 you go, hey, there's something cool, and I combine it with this idea from number 2, and suddenly it becomes much better. This film is an example of that. It's not just our first attempt, it's you know, many thousands of ideas that we threw out to find the ones that are in the movie.
As an animator, do you have any advice for aspiring animator, especially the teenage one who have dreams to be animator like you? Maybe, yes, 3 or 4 advice.
I think the first thing I would do is keep a sketchbook. It doesn't have to be a fancy. For me, I get scared and intimidated if it's too fancy. I like the cheap ones that you can buy for very cheap, and you just draw. You know, keep drawing and observing not just people but details, the way the window works, and what it does is it helps you to notice things that might otherwise just get ignored. So all that stuff, when you draw it, not only do you have a piece of paper, but it kind of puts it in your head and it sticks there. And then later, when you need an idea of like, how does the window work again, you might know. And if you don't, you just look at your sketchbook. So that's important. I think another one would be to start practicing. Like if you want to make movies, start making movies. It's pretty easy to use your iPhone or computer to start making your own films with your friends. It's a lot of work, and the first ones, what'll probably happen, at least to me, what happened is as you're making, you think this is genius, brilliant, and then you look at it and you're like, I can't even really tell what's going on. But that's important because that's where you learn, is by making mistakes and trying it again and again.
When I was a kid, I grew up with Disney. So what is it like to be a part of Disney?
It's pretty cool because I'm the same way. I grew up loving Lady and the Tramp and Cinderella and all these movies, and so to be able to record some of our movies at the same place that they did those, it's like your brain kind of goes, it's so cool.
If you could choose one character from Disney and Pixar who most related to you, who is it? And why?
Well, I mean, I love Dumbo. I'm not sure I'm most closely related to Dumbo as a character, but he's such a fun character to watch because he's so expressive. He doesn't talk. I'm trying to think. Well, I like most of the characters that I like. I don't think I'm actually anything like them. But like Baloo the bear from Jungle Book, he's very charming and funny. I like him a lot. Gus from Cinderella. He's great. So there's just so many characters I love because they're so clear and gettable and fun to watch.
And if in reality you could hang out with one of emotion from inside out, who you choose?
It'd definitely be Joy, because
Joy.
she's the one that is constantly saying, hey, come on, let's go try this thing. Try this new food. You've never had this before. I think most often I'm probably like Fear, where I'm like, I don't know, I've never done this before. But Joy is the one that's dragging you out and getting you to really experience the world.
And you will always be happy because
Yeah.
you're with Joy.
Yeah, I know that's not always possible, but it's nice when it happens.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For
Nice.